Hi, everybody. This is Doug, and I'm with Retro Nerd Girl here. And tonight we're going to talk about Superman. The movie is
Mm.
out. There's been kind of a long slog to get here, and now it's here. It's coming out. I've got it. I've had the chance to see it early at an early screening. I took the whole family, and I've seen it. And I have to say, I am of the camp where I mostly like this film, and I think that this film is going to be successful on multiple levels, even despite the imperfections. That is
Mhm,
my
mhm.
sense of this. I've had plenty of time to kind of unpack it and think about it. So let's get into it. Superman,
Yes,
starring David Corenswet. Retro. Now you said you're pretty familiar with the DC thing, correct?
yes, very much. I follow a lot of stories in the in Newswire from all the top entertainment business outlets, and this is one that's a huge topic that's been going on for like I would say over like 2 decades now. That have been kind of like locked into the DC universe. Issues to do with Warner Brothers, and there was a lot of backstory to get us to the point where we are today. But it's sort of refreshing and exciting to hear all of the news that people are saying about this version of Superman.
Right. Well, say what you want about the superhero genre, superhero fatigue, Marvel versus DC. Superman is special. I think and uniquely special in
Mhm,
American culture. There's something special about Superman in the sense that he's not really known for the having a heavy dark side.
mhm.
He's bright colors. He's the good guy. He's handsome and clean shaven and wears the the bright colors there. He fights for us. There's not. It's not like Batman, who's more morally ambiguous and stuff.
Mhm.
Of
Yeah.
course, in the comic books, and of course, you can have storylines and plot lines and threads where you explore the darker side of the Superman thing. But I would say the Superman brand, he's the big blue Boy Scout. He fights for truth and
Mhm.
justice in the American way,
Yes.
and there is something special there. He has held on to that niche, I think, in the American psyche for
Mhm.
multiple decades.
Yes. One thing I'd like to add is that there was, the time of Superman being in sort of the darkest universe. It is something that where after the movie Superman Returns, there was a huge shift. Maybe Superman doesn't belong in our time anymore. And I think that's correct. Either it's really hard to put Superman in our time. And so the one thing that I think the visuals really set off in this is that this is some sort of special universe, like some other place. Whereas in about 2013, we had a Injustice, the video game, where Superman was in an alternative universe where Superman was naughty and it had a very dark and dangerous feel, and people loved it. They loved it, and the storyline was excellent. They even did a movie, to go along with that, and they also had, of course, Man of Steel came out, had a much darker, more mysterious feel to Superman, and people loved it. People really love that dark edge to it. So there are going to be fans who are going to prefer, even said, "Hey, I didn't really notice Superman until I saw this new kind of version of him." But
Well,
on typical, I think people do like recognize him as the comic book bright character, the do-gooder, that classic Superman.
right. Well, and like I said, it's good to have spin-offs. It's good, different takes, different versions to try something different to try to reverse the archetype.
Mm.
But I would say Superman is anchored by this iconic, you know, good guy image that he has. That's the anchor. And then once that anchor is in place, it's like, well, let's explore. What if he wasn't so nice? And then you
Yes.
could go off and be like, man, that really worked.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but I think that the anchor here is that mainstream brand of Superman being kind of like Americana, good guy, clean cut type superhero. Uh,
Mhm.
so the actors that have delivered this, so Superman started in the 40s in the comic books,
Mhm.
and then it came to the big screen in the 50s, I believe, with George Reeves. And he's 50s man. Like when
Yes.
you look at
Yes.
the pictures of George Reeves, he is 1950s man, and I think that there is a commonality with the do-gooder culture of the 50s, right?
Mhm.
Um, and the Superman character. Well, we have to talk about the shadow of Christopher Reeve, because Christopher Reeve, I think, really cemented the model of Superman for all of us, and he has cast a long shadow. His movie came out in 1978. He is 70s man, right?
Yes.
He's a
Yes.
city guy. He's a New Yorker, basically. If you watch 1978, even though it's Metropolis,
Yes.
he's a 70s man, and yet he is still that do-good type of superhero, the guy who tries not to have any blemishes. And then of course he's complemented by the John Williams soundtrack, you know,
Yes.
and
Iconic, iconic
which is
soundtrack.
iconic. So
Yeah.
and the blue crystal fonts that sweep in. This pretty much
Mhm.
said this is going to be Superman, and
Yes.
any attempt at Superman on the big screen is going to have to contend with this perfect brand that
True.
they
Yeah.
built in the late 70s and early 80s.
Mhm.
Um, and Christopher Reeve is phenomenal.
Mhm.
In fact, when I watch Superman, I watched it recently with the kids, and I was like, man, he just
So good.
fits that bill so well.
Yeah.
So,
And I
there was
also like to, like, add that in the '80s, they continued that with the other iterations of, the
Superman 3.
Superman as a brand there, a movie franchise that they were building, with Warner Brothers.
Right. And so I have to say, though, that really Superman 1 and 2 are what blew
Yes.
a hole in the American psyche. Yeah, that's
Yes.
Superman.
Yes.
Superman 3 and 4 really failed to follow up on
Yes.
that.
Yes.
As a kid, I loved Superman 3, and then I remember watching it when I was like 35 or so, and I was like, man, this is almost unwatchable. This is
I still love it to this day. It's
yeah, so
so
right,
so silly. It's so silly.
it is like I could get through it, and I remember all the moments as a kid that I got excited about. I just I struggled more with it as an adult,
Yes.
and I saw Superman 4 like in the 80s, and I don't think I've ever seen it again.
Oh,
Um, so
yeah.
anyway, like they weren't able to capitalize. So we have to. There was the Superman Returns,
Mhm.
which was okay. It was I don't remember hating
I
the movie.
liked it, yeah. I really liked it. I thought Brandon Routh really nailed that Christopher Reeves flavor, and, he even, like, in real life has the same cadence, the way he speaks, so I was like, "Wow, what went wrong here?" It seems after the lack of success of that movie, Warner Brothers just gave up, and I thought that
Well,
would have been a great thing to continue, like, "Okay, let's see another movie from this new,"
Well, I think it harkens exactly to your point.
yeah,
Is Superman, have we outgrown Superman as a
that
culture?
was the conversation.
Right. So here's the squeaky clean superhero, and they kind of, like you said, they stuck to the beats. They kind of played it safe, I would even say, and just reprised the Christopher Reeve, Mario Puzo Superman of the late 70s, early 80s.
Yes,
And
yes,
audiences were very lukewarm. And here's the other problem. Warner Brothers was lukewarm.
yes,
Any sort of backlash, like you said, they gave up. They gave up
yeah.
right away.
Too
And
soon,
that's
I
the
feel.
end of it.
Mhm,
So
mhm, mhm,
and then we had what has become the Snyderverse of
mhm, mhm,
DC,
mhm,
and I would
which I
say
love.
that right. So I'm not a huge fan of it, but I don't hate
Mhm.
it. I'm not
Yeah,
against it.
yeah.
I would say that the DC world of recent memory, the one that was not that old, that we're already scrapping, had almost a perfectly cast ensemble. It's actually phenomenal. Henry Cavill
Oh,
is
yes,
extraordinary as Superman.
yes.
He embodies the role. He looks like Superman. He's a fan favorite. Women love him. Men love him. Like he is beloved.
Oh, yes.
Um, uh, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. She's almost a
Yes,
perfect
yeah.
fit there. Her first movie was so good. It was so good and so iconic that she could completely brush off Wonder Woman 1984, which was a really terrible film.
Mm.
Didn't even ruin the brand because the first one was so good. And then, of course, you have Ben Affleck as Batman, which has really grown on people over the years.
Yes.
He's more of like the army tank Batman. And then you've got Jason Momoa as Aquaman, which
Yeah,
really I would say
surprise.
worked.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
like him. He's a popular actor. So they had this like perfect ensemble in DC, like actors and actresses you really can't get past
Mhm.
getting them recast. Even I'm like a new Wonder Woman, a new Superman. So it's
Yeah.
hard to get rid of this perfect cast that they had, but they never really had great scripts and great movies. All of their movies seem to be kind of dragged a little bit to some extent, and
Hmm.
it never quite popped. It never quite all came together. They sometimes felt like they were chasing Marvel and rushed things to the theaters
Yes,
that
at
weren't
the end, I feel like, I would say the first 3 at least Superman, Man of Steel, and, Batman and Superman versus Superman, Batman versus Superman. That those 2 were very, very complicated movies that really, if you look at them, they actually have a lot more depth to them. The theatrical version of Justice League really had an issue. Wonder Woman was amazing, Aquaman was really great, but then we get into this area where it was taken, Zack Snyder was not involved with the later versions of the movies, in which they really suffered. They were really, the Flash, Blue Beetle, all of those movies just seemed like,
Blue
uh,
Beetle was good.
yeah, they just didn't have the cohesion. They didn't even match the first 2 movies.
Well, if
Um,
Star Wars has taught us anything, you cannot just hand the torch off to multiple directors with
it does
competing
not work.
visions.
Yeah,
It, it,
it
it
does not
has
work.
not worked repeatedly, and I think DC was wise. Love them or hate them, you're either in or you're out. I get it with James Gunn, but I think DC was wise to say you're going to be the single visionary because at the end of the day,
Mhm.
this phase of DC that's coming up, it will at least be cohesive and it will at least have a feel that will
Okay.
be the same and consistent throughout. And I think that that's actually very important
Yeah. I mean,
for,
that's
for
the
the
hope,
future.
right? Because this movie is sort of setting the tone for the first. I know that there were some other, there's some TV shows that preceded this, but this is the first movie in this new version of DC, the DCU, and
Right.
so this is setting the tone for what we're supposed to get later on. We should expect to see bright colors. We're supposed to see more things from the comic books, more characters from the comic books, and just the general flavor.
So
Uh,
yes. So this movie, Superman, 2025, has done. I think at the at the very least, I can conclude this movie has done its job. Whether
yeah,
it is a perfect movie or whether it is considered a great film, probably not. But I think it did the job, and I think it did it more than just a little bit. I think that it succeeded at a high enough level that they have effectively blown a
mm,
hole through the wall of the Snyderverse and
mm,
said, "We're coming through. We're setting up camp here, and we're going to make a new DC." And
okay,
I think they're leaning Gen Z. And I do think this does not hurt the Snyderverse. In fact, I have this funny suspicion that the Snyderverse is going to become like the prequels. It's going to suddenly, now that it's over, it never quite fit together. It has all these problems, but it has a great cast. I think as time goes by, people are going to like the Snyderverse movies. They're going to come back to them in a couple of years and be like, oh, wow, I like these movies. I like these better
yeah,
than I thought I did. I think that's going to
yeah.
happen.
I think
Um,
so too. I think so too. And the other thing is that we have to just remember that the Snyderverse really is contained in 3 movies. And actually, I would say 6 movies, if you consider, um, his hand, actually being in certain ones, but after a while, they did go over to, um, the studio just made decisions on a lot of the other ones, and even James Gunn had something to say or input to do with, like, The Flash and Blue Beetle, um, and so it wouldn't be fair to call those movies Snyderverse, even though they
I
are
gotcha.
part of the DCEU is what it was called at the time. And so it's like half of those movies were Snyderverse and half of them weren't.
Well, I guess his name seems to be tagged on it a little bit, that
Yes,
era. But that
yes.
era is gone. It was kind of a darker era. I think, there was a lot they got right with those movies, but
Mm,
there was a lot that misfired. This is something new. This is
mm,
going to be different. And I would say there's going to be some people who are disoriented by the shift in tone and image and
yes,
feel.
already.
This is not like the 1978 Superman franchise that was launched, that seemed to have a real grounded sense in like New York and America. With like Lex Luthor, these guys were like 70s characters. You had cops, hard boiled cops following Otis into the subways. So there was a certain 70s groundedness
Yeah.
mixed into the comic book plots. Um, and I think we all like that.
Mhm.
And there was a real effort to establish the origin story. Mario Puzo wrote a great script there. I mean, he opens the film heavily on Krypton. You have Marlon Brando, for crying out loud, as Superman's dad. And then
Mhm.
we kind of moved into the more fantastical, I would say, DCEU, or I think you called it, or the Snyder ish. This is different. This is definitely James Gunn. And I would
Yeah.
say that I was jarred. It took me a second to kind of settle into this world, because it is nothing like the Supermans I remember in the past. And it felt new. And the newness is so loud and bright that you're
Oh,
going to need to get your sea legs under you. That
oh,
said,
wow.
once you get used to really
Mm,
what this world is, it's kind of fun. And it's kind of fun, and it has stuck with me after I left the theater. This I would call it a this world is like an oversaturated fantasy that's also normalized. It's normalized, oversaturated fantasy, meaning everything is fantastical. Everything is like over the top. Like there's battles going on in the background, and some people aren't even paying attention. With superheroes and supervillains, and it's background noise. There's interdimensional portals, and it's like, oh, it's no, and the characters treat it like it's no big deal. There's all sorts of superheroes here. Um, and they don't bat a lash. None of them treat any of this like this is unusual or strange.
mm,
So you can think of Guardians of the Galaxy, where that was easy for the audience to accept, because we're in a far off universe. We're in space. So there
yeah.
was nothing to anchor the fantastical nature of Guardians of the Galaxy. There's a talking raccoon, right? This, you're on Earth.
Mhm.
So you
Yeah.
have this same oversaturation of fantasy elements on Earth,
Oh,
and the film normalizes it. It treats it as completely normal, completely commonplace. That was very jarring to me in the beginning of the film, to where I thought this was hurting the film. And I
mm,
guarantee there's going to be reviews out there that are going to blast it for that.
mm,
However, I think that this began to work a little bit of magic as the film progressed, especially because of the strength of the performances in the actors and actresses in the show.
I heard
This
that, yeah.
has good characters. This has genuinely funny moments, and I like their casting. And David Corenswet became Superman for me now. So he has slid into this role rather quickly, and I was surprised by how quickly I accepted that he's Superman. I found myself forgetting that this is a new one. I forgot that I'm supposed to be judging him. I'm like, oh yeah, Superman. There's Superman. Oh, there's Superman. So he kind of blended in right away and became Superman for me. Something that I thought was going to be very difficult, because it took me a while to get used to Brandon. It took me a while to get used to Henry Cavill. So I kind of warmed up to David Corenswet rather quickly, which surprised me.
Mm,
I thought Lois Lane was good. Lex Luthor was excellent. Nicholas Holt was excellent as Lex Luthor. And two
really?
characters that surprised me, that I found out that I really liked when they were on screen: Mister Terrific and the Green Lantern.
Oh, wow.
They have bizarre personalities that continually got laughs. Mister
Mhm.
Terrific, not in the beginning, but then he kept kind of becoming part of this movie more and more. who was he played by? Mr. Terrific was Eddie Gathegi, and then Green Lantern was Nathan Fillion. So, and those two guys did a great job. So you do, and
Nathan's
then
amazing.
Jimmy Olsen. So you have a supporting cast. You have multiple people delivering kind of over the top performances for their characters. Lots of actor driven personalities, which is kind of a James Gunn preference there. And I thought it worked. So I think that you like the characters, and the more you start to like the characters, the more this bizarre, normalized, over the top metropolis becomes kind of a new escape.
Hmm.
I felt the kind of escapism that I like in movies, where you're just kind of along for the ride on this one. This is the world you're in. You know, this is the world you're in, and once you get used to it, I think it does start to grow on you. I think
Oh,
it'll
cool.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is that this is going to establish itself more and more over time as other
Mhm.
superheroes start to come into this world and their stories start crossing over. Um, will it be what the MCU was? Probably not, but I think it's going to be a new flavor for a new era here.
Okay. Yeah, and that was a question a lot of people, who haven't seen the movie are asking, "Is this gonna be more like," because that's from what we can see with the visuals, it looks very MCU looking. The bright colors and the jokes and everything like that. And so a lot of people are like, "Is this like DC now moving into this kind of MCU territory?"
Well, I think a little bit, but I'll just say this: the MCU has flagged. It has waned something
Yes,
fierce since
yes,
2019. It has
yes.
not done well. So when I think about MCU in the last 5 to 6 years,
Mm.
uh, it is not that brand anymore. So I think that they've
Mm.
damaged their brand. The MCU that you're referring to, that I think most of us forget about the last 6 years. So when you say MCU brand, I think most people think of 2008 through 2019. Iron
Yes,
Man
that's
to
what
Endgame.
I'm referring to,
Yep.
that style.
Iron Man to Endgame. And that brand is driven exclusively, in my opinion, or mainly by the power of personality in each of their superheroes. So if you think
Yeah.
about it, the Taika Waititi, Thor Ragnarok, the James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy had a completely different tone than 2008 John Favreau Iron Man.
Mm.
So, and then you have the Russo brothers. So you did have different people contributing, and you did have different humor levels, different styles coming in, and we
Mhm.
sometimes forget that and think about the MCU mostly at the end when all the characters were together. It got a little bit more lighthearted,
Yeah.
but not all the movies independently had that lighthearted tone. They did
Mm.
kind of, so what held it all together? The heroes. Chris Pratt as Star Lord. You had Tony. Got it. Robert Downey Jr. Jesus, Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. You had
Yes.
Chris Hemsworth as Thor. You had all of these actors who just filled this role, and we liked those actors and actresses so much that you could put them all. I mean, the star power began to really go off the handle. So I think the power of the MCU wasn't necessarily the color schemes, even though that is a part of it.
Mhm.
Um, it wasn't the humor, because that was more of a late entry into that. I think ultimately it was the power of personality of the superheroes themselves, and I think they're going to try that strategy in the DCU. Um, a little bit more casually. They're not going to try too hard to pull a muscle here. I think they're going to let these characters kind of live on the screen and put them in
Mhm.
these over the top scenarios, and then also put them in these very relatable, soft, mundane moments,
Mm.
at the
Mhm.
same time.
Okay, so well, I have a lot of questions for you
Oh yeah.
besides that one. So being that the visuals for this and the tone, the general tone seems to be much lighter, much more uh, that there's much more like levity. How does Batman fit in this? Can you imagine Batman in
So
this world?
so here's my thought. I've actually thought about this.
Yes.
So I'm not a big Harry Potter guy. but my kids wanted to watch it, and I was like,
Okay.
okay, let's watch it. Let's watch Harry Potter. I was like, I guess I'll do. So I watched it, and the first movie was exactly how I remembered. You know, PG, campy. Well, Harry Potter got successively darker, and
Oh,
it made sense. The characters got older. The plot.
yes.
So it was almost like Harry Potter started at that 8-year-old level and ended at
Mhm.
the 18-year-old level or early 20 some. I think
Yes.
the DCU, the James Gunn DCU is going to start bright, happy, and that means it has room to go dark if it needs to, and I think that will work because
Mm,
the universe can support that. So I think
yes.
Batman coming in will be a beautiful contrast to the Superman world where
Mm,
you have a darker element coming into it.
yes,
And I
yes.
think James Gunn's specific special sauce is over the top fantasy, right?
Mhm.
But delivered in a way that's visually believable, right? It looks, the characters look proportional, like everything, and then they're sitting there doing something ultra mundane, like playing a video game or doing something real simple. So I think you contrast it. So I think that you can take that and go to a darker place. So I do think that the DCU will be anchored by Superman, but that
Mm,
allows it to expand out, similar to what we were talking about earlier, where
mhm.
you can kind of darken it up a little bit and see how the audience responds to that. And if you like this brand, where here's all the bright colors of Superman, but just below the surface now we're in Batman's world, and he's got a different point of view of everything.
Gotham City, right?
Right. So, I think it'll work. I think you could do it. I
Yeah.
think you have to really tell the story from the character's point of view. If you start, if you anchor your sense as a writer from the character's point of view and move out,
Mm,
here's Batman, a little
yeah.
bit darker, a little bit edgier. You move out.
You
Well, what
start off
happens?
with yeah, I like that idea. Start off in his cave, and
Yeah,
he's,
you anchor Batman where he belongs, and then now he lives in Gotham City. He's going to go to Metropolis, a little bit different over there.
mhm,
It's like
mhm,
going from New
mhm.
York to freaking San Francisco. It's a different world there. So, I think Batman will absolutely fit in here. I think we're going to get a different take on Batman one way or the other. And I think
Yes.
whoever they cast is going to be the ultimate force behind whether Batman works or not. Not so much James Gunn. I think James
Yeah.
Gunn is going to decorate the world and set the tone, but I think that this actor has to deliver. So
Yeah, I mean, from what he has mentioned about his slate, he's working on Brave and the Bold, which is going to be the Batman movie, where Batman has a son who is very naughty, and it's sort of like setting that up as like Batman. Can you imagine Batman as being a dad? It's like so
I
funny,
think that'll
the
be cool. I,
idea.
I kind of hope he goes more of a noir Batman, like some of the animated series, where it's not the
Mm,
carnival dark Tim Burton world
mm,
and the ultra realistic military world of Chris Nolan. And by the way, the Batman with Robert Pattinson is actually not that bad. I kind of liked it. He was more of a detective style Batman, so there's room to explore a new Batman, a new take, a new angle that still is authentic
mhm,
to
mhm.
that character. So,
Yeah,
um,
I, I,
there's
I'm
and keep in
curious as
mind,
to what
remember when
the
the MCU was born? Yeah,
yeah.
Iron Man was fantastic. Thor was good. The first Avenger was good. The Hulk was not. So they didn't come out like hitting 1,000.
That's
It's
what I'm
similar.
saying. I mean, this incredible pressure on movies to make $1 billion right out of the gate is what really got the whole issue with the last iteration or the last universe kind
Right.
of in trouble, and also Brandon Routh's universe as well. It's like you can't. These are starting points. They're not meant to make $1 billion out of the gate,
Yeah,
and
you have to
they
be confident.
shouldn't. They shouldn't.
If your vision as a studio is to build out an expanded universe, well, you're
Yes.
going to have to patience is going to have to be something that is in
Patience.
your toolbox because
Yeah.
you can't expect everything to be $1 billion. They were right to pick a single visionary, love him or hate him.
Yeah.
At least we know we're going to get some consistency and kind of continuity.
Mm.
Um, And then you start to build the blocks, and you
Yes.
build the blocks and see how the momentum, see where it gets you. Um,
Mhm.
a couple things that they did, I thought were smart. And I'm not saying these were perfect decisions, but they were smart decisions. They did not tell the Superman origin story.
Mm.
So we've seen that story.
Mhm.
Christopher Reeve, in my opinion, the Christopher Reeve was the perfect origin story. Marlon Brando, Kal-El, he sends his son to Earth. That whole opening to the 1978 Superman, the music, I can hear John Williams' music in my head as Superman's floating through space, and Marlon Brando's voice is like on a
Mhm.
recording teaching him history. Um, we did it. We get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
And I think one of the problems with relaunching the Superman movie
mm,
is the pressure to retell the origin story again and again, which they've
yeah.
done. And we're
Yes.
like, okay. And I remember being like, okay, I guess we're gonna watch another origin story. Nope, they skipped it. So I think it was a smart move, and they left
Yeah.
some room where they could add some of that later.
Yeah,
Uh,
you can always go back and tell that story, actually. I think that's actually a plus,
yes,
from a writing perspective, and, not n you know, Man of Steel had an incredible if you're a sci-fi lover like me, that opening was insanely good, and I just like, "How could you do better?" And so I think it was great to
just
stay
skip that.
away from that. Yeah, because
Right.
you'll
To
get the
not go,
comparison, all day long about like,
right.
"Oh, is this how is this one better than that one?" And, yeah, you
Yeah,
can
James
always tell
Gunn
that story
freed
later.
himself of that burden. He's just like, I'm just gonna skip it, and we're gonna
Yes.
start in medias race, where he is in the middle, and get going. Now,
Mhm, mhm.
Superman is still a little naive, I would say, in
Okay.
this, and I think the naivete sort of worked, but David Corenswet is not a teenager, so I think he seemed a little old to be too naive.
Yes.
Um, but that again, that didn't drag the film. It's just when I stop and think about it, I'm like, I think if you're in your 20s, you have some better handle on some of these things.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, a non-origin story, and another thing that they just skipped. Um, I guess this is a minor spoiler. So plug your ears or earmuffs. But it's not a major spoiler. I'm telling you what they skipped to not have to deal with. But like, so he's not trying to hide his identity from Lois. It's not
Yeah,
like the whole world knows who
yeah.
he is, but Lois like didn't even bother trying to run some plays off of that playbook. They just let that go. So there's certain things that they just skipped to stay focused on Superman, and I think that
Mhm,
was ultimately the right decision for a
mhm.
reboot like this, because I
Okay.
think easily we would have gotten bored if they tried to retell something that has a certain set of beats
Yes,
that we've already seen three times. Yeah.
it's one of the classic flaws of the Superman tale is why doesn't Lois recognize him with just a pair of glasses on, you know? It's the same dude. You just went on a date with him. And so
Yeah,
like
yeah.
and I always chalked it up to like Superman magic, like he has like a certain amount of ways to trick her, but I think yeah, just skipping that part and getting to the meat of it. I have a question for you. I know that there are a lot of characters in this movie.
Yes,
Will it be too much for normies who don't know anything about these characters who are
it
just
will
like
be too
being
much for
introduced to it?
some people,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's going to turn off the general public at large, because in a 2-minute trailer, when you see
Mm.
18 characters, you're like, "What? What is this?" And there's a kaiju, there's like a Godzilla thing. You're like, "What?
Yeah. It looks
How
like a
is
hot
all this?"
mess. I'll just say that.
Like,
That's
in a 2-hour movie, and by the way, the trailer shows most of it. So, oddly, the trailer shows the range of Superman, and
Mm,
the early part of the movie shows the range of Superman. Um, so the trailer's almost a little misleading in some of it, but a lot of the extra characters are side characters, and I think they come in and they're more of like comic relief a little bit, I guess you could say.
okay. Okay.
They're in supporting roles with a little bit of comic relief elements. Um, to me, they did not disrupt the movie. Ultimately, they because of the trailer, I was worried about it. So when they showed up,
Yes,
I was like,
the
oh god,
trailer.
we're gonna have all these, but it didn't really drag the movie. The more I
No.
watched the movie, the more when these characters came in, I actually found myself at the end getting happy when like Green Lantern would come in and these guys. Cause I was like, what, because he's funny. He's funny
Yeah.
in this, and he's not Green. He's like macho in this, and he's like a
Mm.
New Yorker with a chip on his shoulder. Green Lantern. He's got all these like. He reminds me of like a bad Elvis impersonator, like a guy who comes. He's got like hey, like kind of a machoism, and with one. I was like, the Green Lantern. I thought he was hysterical. And
Oh,
then Mr.
good.
Terrific, he's kind of this emotionless presence who has these strange emotionless
Mm,
deliveries that
mm,
are
mm.
like observation humor that are hysterical. So believe it or not, I do think ultimately the supporting cast will work. And I think people will like these characters and not find it too They don't have major storylines, if that helps.
Mhm, mhm.
You're not
So
forced to
they're, like,
track.
atmospheric, but they work in the scene.
They do work in the scene. They're more
Okay.
background characters.
Mhm.
They're complementary. They don't spend a lot of time working on character development with them or major plot points with them. So yeah, that is not one of the problems of the film. It could be for some, but that is not ultimately what I think will have will the things that hurt this film are there, and that's not one of them in my opinion.
Hmm. Well, let's talk about some of the things that you think are not, that great.
Right. Okay. So there are a couple.
Okay.
How do I get this straight here? Is that straight?
That looks pretty
Okay.
right there, right there, right there, right there, right there.
So there's a couple things that don't work. One, the worst thing that they did, I won't spoil it.
Mm.
All I'll say is it has to do with his mother and father. After I kept coming back to it on
Which
my way
one?
home
Which
and I was
one?
thinking about the story. I was like, oh
Oh,
man, they changed
they
something.
changed both of them, right? The both parents, didn't they?
Well, Bradley Cooper is not Jarrell. I'm sorry. I just saw Bradley Cooper. So like that was a bad casting choice. I don't have anything against Bradley Cooper, but he did not. I felt like he was too young. Like when I look at Marlon Brando, it's like, whoa, this is the
Yeah.
kind of man you don't mess with, right? Like
Yes, yes.
he was very stoic,
You
like I
don't
don't know,
want him fighting you. You
right?
will
He
lose.
had a presence that
Yeah.
you felt immediately the difference in rank.
Hierarchy, right? Yeah.
This is the
Yeah.
big daddy, and this is
Yeah.
the little Superman. With Bradley Cooper, it's like they're almost like the same age. It was a similar problem, in my opinion, with Obi-Wan and Anakin. Not that I don't like Ewan McGregor, not that I didn't like Hayden Christensen, but I
Oh.
thought that they were so close in age that they
Mm.
actually missed a fundamental dynamic of the master and the student. The master
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
pupil.
It ended up that they felt more like brothers,
They
right?
felt more like brothers, which
And they
still
said that.
worked in its own expression and in its
Mhm.
own way. It
Mhm.
became the dynamic, and it
Yeah.
became one that I think we all kind of grown to really love. Even
Oh,
like
yeah. Oh, yeah.
But, like, imagine if it was Kenneth Branagh as Obi-Wan. There'd be an immediate distance,
Ooh, yeah,
age and wisdom, and it would be much more of an intimidating, uh,
yeah,
father figure. Bradley Cooper does not have that. So
yeah.
that I thought was a bad casting choice. And two, the thing that they changed, I can't get it. It's like a splinter. It's the thing that probably bothers me most about the film,
I
and
think I've already heard about this.
I hope they change it in a later film because
Yes, it's a possibility.
I just don't like it, and to me it wasn't even that great of a plot point. It seemed like a good temporary plot point until we clear up the misunderstanding. And by the end,
Mhm.
when the movie ended, I was like, "That wasn't a misunderstanding. That's the plot point." So I didn't like that. That was probably the thing I hated the most. That will bother mostly my generation, or our
Mhm. A
generation.
lot of people.
Yeah, our generation that really knows the true roots of the Superman origin story and really
Mhm.
loves the Marlon Brandover. So it's going to be hard to deal with that. For the general audiences, that might not bother them as much. But I think what will bother general audiences most are the competing plot points, which when I think I'm like, you could have taken out entire plot points here and not hurt the film.
Oh,
So there are some international plot points. And I will say this movie's not political. I don't know what the heck the media was saying. They were saying that, Superman is an immigrant. This is about politics and blah blah blah. I think that's been completely misconstrued. I
yeah.
think it was done to maybe either a service one segment of the audience who likes that stuff in their movies,
Okay.
or it was done to turn off the general public to hurt the movie.
Well,
Um,
James Gunn is the one who said it.
but have you? I actually listened to the full interview.
Yes.
And in the full interview, they're
Oh.
asking him specifically. He's like, no, no, it's not really slanted that way. And the person interviewing him is asking him specifically about the conversation between Superman and Lois Lane, where she's interviewing him,
Mm.
and the banter. And he says, yes, that's political because it is. Their conversation is political, but not in a partisan way. It's not like right wing, left wing political. It's
Okay.
like Superman. Did you, when you are doing something internationally, are you representing America? He's like, well, no, I'm
Ah,
just
yes, yes.
representing me. It's like, well,
Yeah,
did you get permission from the world leader to cross the border?
yeah.
What does the Department of Justice think about your act? It's political in that sense.
Mhm.
And that's what James Gunn was
Batman v Superman addressed the same thing too, yeah. Mhm.
totally.
It's a
So
common,
right, it's
take on that.
political in a general, nonpartisan, not offensive way that would
Mhm.
not turn off either side. It's general political stuff, similar to like Captain America: Civil War, the Sokovia Accords.
Yes.
That's a political discussion. So her
Yes.
interview questions are in line with the Sokovia Accord style
Mm, mm,
politics,
yeah.
not American bipolar politics that turn people off. And that's what James Gunn was referring to. So now when I see how they printed those headlines, I'm like, someone's either trying to ruin
Yes.
momentum in this film, or they're trying to turn on a segment that wants this to be political,
It
but it's not in
may Yeah, it may not even be a gender-based, but it is about, uh, for them, putting them whatever the celebrity or person has said, the most controversial line that they can come up with to fabricate sort of this kind of discourse where you're going to immediately click on their article. It's all articles based, and they do that on purpose so people will be misled
there.
by and they're not going to read. They're not
Well,
going to
I got
read
to
the whole
admit,
thing.
I was turned off. I was like, Superman is political. Oh no! My enthusiasm really started to nosedive. Now my tickets were bought. I'm going anyway. I'm a Superman guy. I love Superman. So as I was watching the movie, like I'm on guard, right? Any mention of like immigrant thing, I'm like, oh god, are they going to go political here? Is this the moment?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
And it never really came. In fact, you'd almost have to pull a muscle to really read into the movie to find a political message. Um, if you tried, you might be able to connect a dot, but I
Mhm.
think that's you connecting the dot. I really don't think the movie is intending for
Mm.
that dot to be connected so much. All the political discourse in the movie is revolved around in world um, banter. It's not has nothing to do with American politics or right or the left, in my opinion.
Yeah.
In fact,
And and
there's a line in the movie, and
mm.
I'm not spoiling it, but there's a line where it's at the end. He's like, and this is the line: conservatives and liberals can all agree on one thing: we hate Lex Luthor. And I was like, oh yeah, what a great thing for the movie to have, because it's like non-political and it's unifying, and it's
Mm.
in world in which the villain is Lex Luthor, not people you disagree with politically in the real world. It's Lex
Yeah.
Luthor. And the film like reminds you of that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're in the theater, the bad guy is Lex Luthor. you know.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because a lot of the statements you just said about the political aspect, it is congruent with a lot of people who actually gave bad reviews. They did not think it was political, there was a political agenda going on, but they had other this, uh, problems with the movie, and which one of them is you've already addressed about the
Right.
parents.
So yeah, listen, this is not a perfect film.
Mhm.
It's I would not even say it's a great film, but it didn't need to be great. It just couldn't afford to be bad. And
Yes.
and I also think that it couldn't afford
I
to,
could
I think it couldn't afford to be average or forgettable. And so I think what James Gunn
Mm.
did, he made sure that this was not going to be forgettable because
Mhm.
it's so over the top.
Yeah.
So it's not forgettable and it's not average. It's above average. It's good. And that's all it needed to be. And I
Mm.
think this is going to make a lot of money. I think it's going to get good word of mouth. And more
Yeah.
importantly, it appealed. My kids loved it. My kids loved it.
The
And
kitties, yes.
yes, my kids both love, and I love, and I walked out and they're like, Dad, what do you think? I was like, you know what? I liked it. I didn't think I was. I started watching it. The first 20 minutes of the movie feels like an extended version of the 2 minute trailer.
Mm.
So for a while, I didn't feel like I was getting much out of the movie because I'd already seen it, a lot of it in the trailer. So I think they actually did it, the movie a disservice with the trailers, and they had so many
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
I think what
The
they should
teasers
have
and
done,
the trailers, they were horrible, and even, like, posters, and I was like, "This does not look good."
they should
And
have focused on David Corenswet and Lex Luthor. They should have
mm,
really built more mystery to it. The art of mystery in a movie trailer is what I think would have this could have benefited from.
yes.
Uh, so the some of the plot lines are convoluted. That there's no question about it. There's an international plot line which ties into a government plot line that I don't think was very necessary. Um,
Mm,
this is the kind of fodder that people want. Like I was like, is this political? Are they trying to make a political statement?
yeah.
In the end, I decided no. That this is just Sokovia again. This is like a Fantasia of a Eastern European country that's like, or like in Top Gun Maverick, they never said Russia in Top Gun
Yes,
Maverick.
yes.
So this is kind of like a Fantasia of an Eastern European, Russian, Slavic style culture, and also a Fantasia of an Indian, perhaps, culture that are at war. But it's hard
Mm,
to read into it as meaning anything more than that. But ultimately, I don't think they needed that. And I wish that they would have gotten rid of the international plot line and focused more on Metropolis. I think this would have benefited from getting rid of those plot lines. By the end of the movie, when the government guys would show up, I'm like, oh, who cares? Like, what is this plot still alive? Like, are we still here? So, plot line uh, crowding, we'll call it. It was a crowded plot lines.
okay.
Um, Another thing that I don't think worked very well was Clark Kent. Superman was fantastic. Clark Kent
No.
was so you actually mentioned earlier when we were talking how did Lois not know? How did
Yeah,
she not
yeah.
know this character? Both they're the same height. This was almost comical because David Corenswet stood out enough as Superman that by the time he's got his hair permed and glasses on, it's like, dude, you ain't fooling anybody. Like
Yeah,
you look
yeah.
exactly like Superman with glasses. Like for whatever reason, um, Christopher Reeve changed his persona. Oh, geez, Lois, I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was so nerdy that he got away with it. And I think that
I
that may have been underestimated in his performance.
yeah.
How he was able to, because if I tell you to shut your eyes and think of Clark Kent, you'll immediately summon up images of him with his hat on and his glasses and his briefcase bumbling around and geez, Lois, and pushing up his glasses with one finger. There's a character there. There's a
Yes,
persona there.
yes.
And Christopher Reeve gave us that persona. Um,
I would say so. I would say so. And even the posture. Like, there's
yeah,
one
yeah,
scene where he's being, like this, and then he
dismissive.
goes like this, and it's like, "Whoa!"
Well, and his shoulders are high.
Visual. Yeah,
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 his shoulder, and he's always asking kind of dorky questions. He's unsure of himself.
yeah.
He's insecure. Oh, you're thinking about Superman again? Like, oh God, Um, and of course, Superman's nothing like that.
Yeah.
Um, we don't really get that sort of
Aw.
a contrast here. He's
Yeah,
Clark Kent so briefly, and it's so not convincing. And I think I don't know if it's just the modern age that even the beta males have to look really good. They're dressed up and stuff. So it just did not work. And
yeah.
luckily they didn't spend much time with it. But in my heart, I'm like, man, the Clark Kent Superman duology if the dichotomy there, the
Yeah,
contrast is part of the Superman thing in the
yeah,
movie, that hidden identity, and they just skipped it. So I didn't like that much. I wish they would have found a way to make Clark Kent a character again, because Clark Kent is a portal for us. We're not Superman, so Clark Kent is
yeah,
easier to grab a hold of and be like, I feel more like this guy. I feel more like
yes.
him when he's in a crowd. So
Mhm.
um, you know, so it would have been nice if they could have worked that angle, but they just did not.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a shame.
Perry White was another character that was just non-essential, non-impactful. Um,
What? That's
Perry White, he's Jackie Cooper in the old movies, and Perry White has a pretty big presence,
yes.
um, and
Get
he's
out
he's
there and get me those stories, you know?
get those stories. Um, he is watered down to the point of completely forgettable in this,
Oh, wow.
unfortunately. Um, and I would say not enough Metropolis. Metropolis is very
That's really
it looks like New York sometimes.
mm,
Sometimes it looks like Chicago.
mm.
Um, Sometimes it looks like Nova Prime from Guardians of the Galaxy. Um, but it's brightly lit, it's modern, it's near future. It's near future modern,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
it's just extras. So, like when I watch the old Superman, there is a New York vibe there. There's a New York vibe in the old Superman
Yes, very
from
New
the late
York.
'70s. There's pimps
Yes.
on the street. There's all the old cars are sitting out there, and there's newspapers blowing down the street and everything, and there's little places to eat. Like you're on the
Yes.
streets, and you see these little nooks and crannies. There's hey, come here, and you go into a back alley. You walked around in New York a little bit, even though it's Metropolis, with the old Superman. So the city becomes a character in the story.
Yes.
That's even more so with Gotham City.
Mm, mm.
Tim Burton gave us such a strong Gotham City that the
Oh, yeah.
character of it
Mhm.
is just as it contributes just as much as Michael Keaton did in the old. I didn't get too much of that in this.
Yeah.
It seemed like a giant, beautiful city that was like a sandcastle to be knocked around as superheroes and supervillains fought regularly. And I
Mm.
just didn't know how a city could make it more than a year under this sort of stress. I mean, skyscrapers are being knocked down regularly, so it's like, what kind of? I think I'd move out of there. Jeez.
Well, I guess that was one of the biggest complaint about the Man of Steel, that there was a lot of collateral damage, and I was looking at the trailer for this, and I'm like, well, look, they're doing collateral damage here
It's too
too.
much. Yeah, it's so much collateral damage that by the end of the movie, you're
It
just like,
makes
man,
sense
I would
though.
not live in that city. It's like we built a city on top of a nuclear bomb, and we're just going to live in it anyway. Um,
Yes.
so those were, I think, the biggest flaws of the story,
Mm.
the things that are going to take away from it. Um, Shockingly, I did not feel the pressure of competing storylines from different characters intruding, and that was something that seriously concerned me with the trailer.
Yes.
I was seriously concerned about that. And
Oh,
so
that's
now,
so refreshing that it doesn't really, bother it too much.
yeah,
That's
it
really
didn't
great.
bother me, and I actually liked there's the Hawk girl. Now she's not featured in this too much, but the scene she was in, she was good. She was fine. Um, Ultraman was very weak. Ultraman is in this. He was very forgettable. So I feel like
Oh,
that's another thing they could have kind of ironed out a little bit. I thought Crypto was good. There was just enough Crypto for me, just
okay.
enough. He was he was relatable.
Mhm.
Like he reminds you of a dog in the house who's sometimes is a little too invasive. Doesn't listen and stuff. So there's a few lines with him that I think
Yeah.
work. So I think Crypto mostly worked. But he did not pop. He is not. He didn't. I don't think he did enough to endear himself in a very powerful way. I think he did just enough to be recognizable and mostly liked.
Yeah. Um, what did you another thing was that kind of came out there as far as people like wondering about was the score. And I know
I
that there was some dissatisfaction with the score.
Oh, really? Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm a soundtrack guy. I love
I know,
soundtracks.
I know. I needed to hear what your
Yeah.
thoughts were on this.
So my first thought, they still use the Superman theme from John Williams. So
Okay,
remember we
smart,
talked about
smart.
that big shadow that was cast from 1978 with, and
Yeah.
I mentioned in this stream that it was Christopher Reeve, Mario Puzo, Gene Hackman, and John Williams. They cast a long shadow, and here we are in 2025. Can we do better than that? Can we get away from that? And I think the score is where we said no. We're going to try something new with Superman. We're going to try something new in this world, in this universe. We're going to Gen Z this thing a little bit.
Okay.
But there's the score. It's still there. There's still some John Williams, and I
The
don't
connective
necessarily.
tissue.
I don't know if it's a bad thing or not because there. I've thought this is the Superman music at this point the Superman music. Like we have to retire the jersey number because we're not going to write a better Superman score. Why bother? Because do you remember when Rogue One came out? When Rogue One came out, they hired Michael Giacchino to do the music, and he did
Oh,
great.
yeah.
By the way, it's a great
Yes.
score. I own the vinyl. I
I
own the
love them.
6 record vinyl from Mondo, like the collector's. It's a great score. But I'll never and I love even the score I'm going to talk about. But there's a moment in the movie where it's all black, and then the nose of a Star Destroyer comes out of the shadows, and they're building the Death Star. And Michael Giacchino wrote an alternate Imperial suite, a different, and it's great. But and I mean it. It's really, really good. But I'm like, man, that really needs to be the Imperial March. Like, I don't know if I can
Oh,
ever accept a Star Wars Imperial theme that's not John Williams music. So,
yeah.
like if they rebooted Raiders of the Lost Ark, do I really want someone else to try to write an alternate? Like I could do an alternate
That's
actor
tough.
maybe, but so there's a part of me that's wondering if these themes are so perfect that they're now
They may be.
embedded in the DNA of our culture and embedded into the DNA of Superman that best to keep and modify the
Yeah,
themes
yeah.
rather than to throw it out completely and say this is the new Superman music. So they chose to keep and modify. And to be honest, and maybe this is controversial in the sense that most people are going to disagree, or maybe it's an. I thought it was the right decision because the
Mm.
music itself carries a certain Superman presence to it,
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
so it wasn't beat for beat. It wasn't exactly the same music. It was a
Mm.
modification, but it was there. And I thought that maybe that's the right way to do it. There
I
was a
think you're
couple
right.
points. Hmm?
Oh, go ahead. I think you're right about when I look at like Terminator and Halloween, those soundtracks are so, or the theme songs are so iconic to the brand itself.
Yes.
That you kind of need that song, those themes to kind of like, hey, you're in this universe. This is the universe you're in.
Well, like
The,
even in Picard, the TV show, like they're still using Jerry Goldsmith's music for
mm,
Star Trek, and
Star
they're not
Trek,
the
yes,
only ones.
yes,
So
yes, yes.
it's almost like the music is part of the brand. So whoever you cast, the music is going to kind of come with that brand, I think, at this point.
Yeah, yes.
And I guess I'm getting to be okay with that because God forbid they hire someone, he rewrites music, and it's background elevator music in a Superman movie, which I've seen that before. Um, and I don't want that because I feel like now I've heard a score that's just not that good, boring. There was a
Yes.
couple. I actually let me see if they've released it yet. I've been looking to listen to the full soundtrack
Oh,
of Superman, and they have not released the full.
okay.
Um,
Maybe on the 11th they might.
yeah,
Okay.
main theme. Yeah, they just have the main theme. So I haven't listened to it, but there was a couple times I was listening, and the score stuck out to me to where I
Ooh.
liked it. So my sense is the score is good, but I have not listened to it from beginning to end, and I always do that. So I can't tell you decisively whether it is officially a good score, but the maintaining of John Williams, I understand why they did it and I accept it. And there was a couple themes that popped out that I thought sounded really good, and I couldn't wait to hear on the soundtrack. So I'm curious about it, but I think it's
Mhm.
going to be good. My
Yeah.
my sense was that it was a good soundtrack.
That I'm so happy about that because I love the Superman classic music, and, I I'm happy that in ooh, sorry. I'm just happy in general that is, one of the perks of the movie is a great
Yeah,
soundtrack.
yeah. I
Yeah,
think
I'm
I think they did the right thing with the music. Again,
mhm.
we'll find out in the end if the rest of the score really holds up or if it becomes forgettable. Um, but I will on almost every movie I will listen to the entire score, and if there's any music worth a damn, I'll add it to my playlist. And I have this huge playlist of it's just my greatest, all my favorite music from movies, and I'll just hit random and listen to it anytime when I'm driving. And it could be Raiders 1 minute, Blade Runner the next, to Superman 2025. So it'll jump
Or
around.
Batman. Batman's great.
One
Tim
of one of the
Burton.
best soundtracks ever.
Yeah,
Danny Elfman.
yeah, great.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, so yeah, I think I said a lot of things I liked. Let's see if there's anything I missed. Oh, another thing that I like, this is going to sound bizarre, but there were some beautiful women in this movie. And I'm talking like, wow, like, hot,
Yeah.
dressed hot. And I actually was so stunned by it that I was like, we just don't get hot women in movies anymore. Like, cleavage. And like, I was just like, wow, these chicks are like decked out, gorgeous, hot, and they look hot. So I was surprised because I guess I had not really realized how rare of an image that was. But it was nice to see beautiful women on the big screen again.
Yeah.
Undeniably gorgeous women. So it was Miss Tessmacher is in this, and she was in the first one, and
Yes!
yeah, she was a knockout in the first one. So it was nice that they're not afraid to put beautiful women on the screen and just not be ashamed to do it. I don't know. I mean, you can't they have guys taking off their shirts all the time now. So it's like, and I'm not shocked by that. I don't blame women for liking that. So I don't know why they should blame me for liking what I like. So it
Yeah.
was just nice. It was an odd thing to notice that I liked.
Yeah, I
Um,
I noticed that the casting for this was a lot different than your usual Hollywood casting. There were
hmm.
a lot of people from TV, and usually TV, a lot of the people on TV are pretty good looking, so I don't know. That might
Yeah,
be
so
part of
you're
it.
not wrong.
Yeah.
They like so even I'm a straight guy, but I could tell if a dude's good looking.
Mm,
I
mm,
know if
mm.
I'm standing next to the guy at a bar, which one the girl's going to go for. So um, this had a good looking cast. They were attractive people.
Mm.
Even like when you think of the old Superman Lex Luthor with Gene, he was great.
Yeah,
Almost
oh,
I love him as Lex Luthor. But
yes.
Nicholas Holt's a good looking guy. He's tall. He's got his own persona and stuff. So and David Corenswet, he looks like a Superman. He looks like a male model, good guy. So
Mhm,
and
mhm,
Lois, I thought was she wasn't like drop dead gorgeous hot, but she was physically attractive, and she
mhm,
was
mhm.
also kind of that sort of combative female personality that I like. The one that'll
Mhm.
like spar with you a
Spicy.
little bit and kind of come
Yeah,
at
yeah,
you a little bit.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Lois
so
always is.
yeah. So she was still an attractive person to me. Miss
Mhm.
Tessmacher was super hot. There's some chick, I don't know who she is, who works at the Daily Planet, who showed up in the background. I don't know who she was, but she was amazing. You'll know who
Oh,
I'm talking
wow.
about. Nameless Daily Planet worker chick.
Ba-ba-boom.
She stuck in my brain. Um, so yeah, there. Oh, and Jimmy Olsen.
Yes.
Do you remember? Did you ever watch Game of Thrones?
So a little bit of it, I haven't I don't
There was a character named Sir Roderick who seemed like a very average looking guy, but all
Hmm,
the chicks liked him. And it was like
okay.
inexplicable. And you got a sense that the guy was just, endowed, right? And to the point
Mhm.
where like girls were like paying him just about everyone's like, how do you do it, man? Like, wow, chicks are just Jimmy Olsen's that kind of a guy in this, and it's freaking hysterical.
Oh,
So
boy.
So instead of just being a guy who's in the background, like, yeah, what do you want, Superman? Did Timmy fall into the well? Time to chase that. He's a little bit more active in this.
Okay.
He's a secondary character, but women are inexplicably drawn to him in this. So even Jimmy Olsen has this sort of angle that you won't forget. He's memorable in that
Yeah.
way. Um, so yeah, I think so those are the goods and the bads. I think we covered those. I'll tell you a few things that I was very mid on, things that either
Okay.
weren't that great or kind of worked sometimes and didn't work. The Earth parents, Jonathan Kent and them, the mom, they were so middle America that it was almost too jarring between
Mm,
the near future metropolis and then the sort of like rural Kansas parents.
yeah.
The mom was she felt authentic. The dad seemed a little less so. I think the mom did better than the dad for
Yeah.
Superman's adopted parents. But I
Mhm.
thought that was very mid ultimately,
And
that it didn't quite do much. Look, to this day, when I'm watching the old Superman, when
yes.
Superman is out in the cornfields that morning and his mother
Mm.
sees him and she knows he's leaving, I still get emotional.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
something
that's a tough
about,
scene.
yeah,
Yeah.
then there's the sweeping score that comes in and she's like,
Yeah.
"Where are you headed?" And he just goes, "North." It's the most ambiguous, beautiful answer I've ever heard.
Also, I wanted to say this, that is exactly where a lot of people have a lot of criticism is for the human parents, adoptive parents
Mm.
of Clark Kent, and they said that the depiction was a little bit too simple, and maybe a little bit offensive to some. Uh, and
I
so
could
it was a touchy kind of.
to get offended by it, it sounds silly to me.
Mhm, mhm.
Superman's parents came from rural Kansas, right? And so what I would have done if I were in charge of the movie was
Ooh, yes.
when Superman was made was in the 40s,
Yeah.
and there was a phenomenon going after World War II. There was a sociological phenomenon of people leaving rural America, middle America, 500 people towns in Corntown, and in these small little areas, and then moving to the big city. My mom is
Mhm.
one of these people. She
Yeah.
lived in a small town, and she's part of the first generation that went to college in mass. So this leaving middle America and going to the big city was a phenomenon in the post World War II era, one that
Mm,
they were able to maintain in the late 70s. There was enough of middle America because it was set in the 50s,
mm.
right? So in
Yes.
the 1978 movie, it was 19 maybe 60 or something when Clark was in school, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? He's like, "I could
I'm not
score a
exactly
touchdown
sure.
every." But it was,
Yeah,
well,
I
yeah,
didn't
because
know, yeah.
it was thrown. It was like late 50s or early 60s or something.
Mhm.
So they were able to still maintain this phenomenon, the sociological phenomenon. Gen Z has no clue or care or concern about that, and so I
Mhm.
think the phenomenon is moving from the suburbs to the middle to the big city. So what I would have done is had Clark Kent,
Ooh.
John and Martha Kent be more suburbanite.
Ah, I
Uh,
love it. I love
Middle
it.
American parents. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
have them suburban. Maybe there's a McDonald's on the corner. Make them simpler, quote unquote, in that sense that their life is simpler. They're not part of the hustle and bustle of a big metropolis,
Mhm,
but they're in the
mhm.
suburbs,
Yeah, and
right?
so they're still connected to the rest of the world. They're still connected to,
Yeah,
like,
or
technology.
upstate New York.
Yeah, yeah.
They're upstate.
Ooh. Yeah,
So I
yeah.
don't think you needed to go with a version of America that is less relatable today, and
Mhm.
potentially more of a caricature than anything else. So, and my wife said that was one of the things she didn't like, how heavy-handed they were with
Mm.
John and Martha Kent. So
Yes, heavy-handed, yeah, that's a good
I
term.
didn't get mad about it, but I thought it was mid, and I thought that was an area that there's some room for improvement there,
Mm,
is what I
mm.
thought. Like, they could have
Okay.
they could have done better there.
And they can change things in the future. They can, improve that for future movies.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Um, the other thing was, I thought Lois, I'm not gonna say she was mid because I liked her, but,
Mhm.
she didn't quite pop, and there's a small part of the story she kind of gets lost in. So I thought that Lois, maybe they should have done a little bit more with her. She's not a girl boss. She's not obnoxious. There's that scene in the trailer where her and Clark are talking, and people got nervous that she was just like upset. That's not the case. In fact, I think they should have sold it the way what it was. The issue there is that it is a woman who's a professional reporter interviewing her, secret superstar boyfriend, and you get sort of this crossing of the line on interpersonal stuff. He's
Yes.
like, you only know that because I've told you like in pillow talk, and you shouldn't be asking me about that. She's like, well, we got to ask it. So the problem is the lines were blurring between their intimate relationship and this sort of impersonal interview with hard-hitting
Mhm.
questions.
Yes.
So I don't know. I thought that was pretty good, and it actually worked better in the movie than it played in the trailer.
Interesting.
But I
Yeah.
thought I would have been happier if they had a little bit more Lois. She was likable enough to be more present, I think, in the middle portion of the story.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say it's mid. It's just it, it it was sometimes refreshing, but it also breaks the Superman spell a little bit. They use swear words in this. Um,
Ooh.
so they swear in it a couple times. Some of it's funny. It got laughs when they were swearing. That I was in an opening night crowd. It tended to play well to the audience.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but now they're swearing in Superman. So it's like, okay, I think I can get over it, but that's a little bit more of in the middle for me than good or bad. I didn't think it ruined anything. I
Interesting.
didn't think it was good, but it was kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
Um, the Fortress of Solitude.
Mm.
Visually, I freaking loved it. Like,
Oh.
it's cool. It is cool. It's almost like this crystal structure. It can disappear, so it can go back underground. It can come back
Mm.
out. The crystals look like, man, high res 4K crystals. So
Oh.
it is gorgeous to look at it.
Oh, I can't wait to
Uh,
see that.
it's beautiful, Fortress of Solitude, but it's populated by all these robots. Um, so it's not really solitude. It's like the Fortress of Robot Friends. um, I, it, I think that the robots might work long term.
Mm.
In this movie, I think they were a little bizarre, and they're in the Fortress of Solitude. So it's like the one place you think of Superman going to like find peace and quiet. There's like
Yes.
all these droids there he's talking to. So they're like butler droids.
Would you like a glass of soda?
Yeah. Now, at the end of the movie, I sensed that these could work over time. That you'll once you
Mm.
get used to them, they're not going to be as awkward. But I thought that the droid friends was a little mid, not
Hmm.
bad. Some people are going to hate them,
Yeah.
but they weren't great either. So I think
Mhm.
they're kind of in that sort of what are we doing here? How's this
Interesting.
going to work?
Yeah.
Uh, so we'll have to wait and see if that
Mhm.
maintains and works in the long run.
Now, do you remember a show called Super Friends?
Oh my god. Yes, but I'm not familiar with it.
Well, it's just like the Justice League and all those guys together and, round table, and then they go off and do it. I mean, those are the vibes I was getting from a lot of the materials that were exposed about, the story or the teasers
So
and the trailer.
so
If you
yes.
remember any of the do you re does it have a lot of that flavor, or do you feel like eventually it might end
So
up becoming something like that?
that is a great question because that is what is so different about this Superman.
Mm,
This is not just
mm,
about him. He's in a world where he is sharing the spotlight with other supers, right?
yes, yes.
Um, other like I said, this is
Mm,
oversaturated. Everything is fantastic
mhm,
and normalized simultaneously. That's the
yes,
James Gunn thing.
mhm,
So, I think it will work in the long run. As much as people are turned off by it now, it's because they haven't seen anything like this. It is bizarre. It's like when we first saw The Phantom Menace, we're like, this is Star Wars? Well, now the prequel era is the best era. So it's going to take a while to get reoriented to the new metropolis, to this new shared super universe where there's all these characters in Superman's world. Um, the Justice League is in this film,
Mm,
and it is pretty cool. And it's in there just enough to basically tease it. And this is part of what I think. Why this is one of the things that I think makes me think that Superman will have legs. This
okay.
film, and then of course the franchise and the subsequent ones. There's a world already existing for us here. It's
Mhm,
like you
mhm.
open this door and there's all this stuff flying around, all these colors and noises. You're like, whoa, this is Superman. This is what's behind the Superman door. Well, once you get used to all the things moving around, it's fleshed out. There's
Yeah.
the Justice League downtown. Inside is Green Lantern and Hawkgirl, and they're hanging out. They're on their phones. It's like, it's that James Gunn brand of fantastical with doing the mundane, right? So you have the Justice League in the film. Um, you get a sense that they are active in this world.
Mm.
There are scenes that show you that they are sometimes getting the call, and Superman is staying at home, on a date with Lois or something.
Oh,
Um,
that explains one of the teasers that I saw, the teaser posters.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, the Justice League is a part of this world. Like I said, I actually liked the Justice League in this. They had just enough they had some personalities that popped. So I think
Mhm,
that as we get another 2-hour film and a little bit more of them and a new character like
mhm,
Supergirl, which I think is
mhm.
the next film,
Isn't I think so.
as these movies start to add layers, there's enough here in the movie Superman to where there's a full world waiting for us. And the more they build it out, one
Mhm.
day in 10 years, we're going to come back and rewatch this film and be like, oh man, there's the Justice League right there. So
Yeah,
now all they need to do is not recast everybody. Keep the
thank
green,
you.
like keep these actors and actresses. Give
Yes,
Hawk Girl her movie at some point, or a TV show. Like keep the continuity, because even Marvel struggled with that, with the
yeah,
Hulk and War Machine and that, like they changed actors.
yeah.
So
I mean, I think it's very important that, whether you're a fan of this, Superman movie or not, the the future should be of DC movies should be continuing this world.
so
Um, and if
yeah,
they're going to involve other worlds, other universes, other dimensions, I think it's possible because now this is set up. We are very firm to know what this is set up. They can set up other universes, or they call off world, is what they turn the term that is being used, or and they can, just as long as they come up with the next movie and the next movie and the next movie, and not drop the ball as they've done so many times and said, "Oh, we're switching gears now. We're going to take the focus off of Superman, and the replacement for Superman will be Supergirl." That's what they tried to do with the Flash movie,
yeah,
and that
don't
was
do
just
that.
a total failure. And just continue on with this storyline so people can start to become fans again. People can start to enjoy fandom again, because that's been the problem. We want, average people want to just be fans of stuff, and we
Totally.
need a complete story in order for you to do that.
Well, and think about it. Tony Stark did not change much from 2008 Iron Man through most of the films, or
Yes,
even when he
that's
was
so important.
experiencing certain changes and adjustments, there was still a through line there.
Hmm, hmm.
You could draw a through line from Tony Stark. So by the end of Endgame, when he's the guy who takes it all on him, and he's the one that goes down to save us all, the most selfless act in the universe.
Yes,
Wow, what a satisfying arc for that guy, right? So
yes.
my hope, and I like the universe as it is. My hope is that they do the opposite of the MCU. Start with the fun, semi campy, fantastical
I like
oversaturation,
that. Yeah.
and then get darker as the audience, this younger audience, gets older. The way Harry
Yes.
Potter did. Start,
Yes.
like you said, is there a place for Batman? And I'm like, if my calculations are correct, then yes, Batman could add some of that darkness. There's other characters you
Mm.
could bring in. Superman can lose somebody, and that really hurts. Maybe Lois later on is like a Mary Jane moment in Spider-Man.
Mhm.
You can go to dark places as you start to experience what the world can do to you, right? And you have to find a way to battle back. So I think it would be very interesting for DCU to start where the MCU sort of left off and then go the other way.
Mm.
So that's where I think this is going to go, and it works. I think that's good for DC because, like you said, DC has some of that little darkness in their brand a little bit. So
Very much so.
I think if you start here, and because my kids loved it, as my kids get older, they're not going to want squeaky clean. They're going to want Batman dealing with some underworld nasty stuff. So get darker as you go instead of starting with the arms dealer in Afghanistan to flying around on other planets. I think DC has a good starting point. Marketing wise, this will work. I think this movie is going to do very well, and I think it's going to be popular. So
Yeah.
now you can get dark, and I think, like you said, people respond. So, like you said, people respond to the dark version of Superman. Well, yes, but also there's something to the fact that because it's moving away from that source material, or a variant of the anchor
Mm.
sometimes makes it compelling. So, um, I think
So,
there's
and
definitely.
I'm what I'm getting from you and what I'm saying is that the way forward for this to be successful is for it to slowly uh, get to the point where there are more complex characterization of Superman, and maybe in a more darker setting to match Batman and the world that's being set up by Bold and the Brave. Because according to what James Gunn has told us about this world, it's supposed to be pretty dark. So
Hmm.
and then pull this all together, and even the themes are really dark and a little twisted, and then pull all of this together somehow to this, later on with other movies going down the line. But yeah, I agree. I love that, and what do you think about the timing? Because I think the timing for this kind of a movie is definitely on point, because I think people are really looking for something to hope and for, or something to look forward to, especially with with Hollywood and the film industry being so tough to like know, like, okay, is this a good movie or is this a bad movie? And hearing all the noise out there, this seems to be like one of the brighter stars out there as far as movies. We had Sinners just recently that was like a shining beacon, and we
Yeah,
had we had last year we had the Wicked, which did very well. So it's like, okay, Hollywood, you're building your stock back up, and people are starting to trust movies again and starting to go to the movies again. And even the new Jurassic movie,
which I
not
saw.
you did. Oh, we'll have to talk about that later. But not the best reviews, but it's doing very well out there.
There are things
People
in
are
it that work.
enjoying it.
Yeah, there are some things in it that work and some things that absolutely don't. We'll have to save that. But I would say Superman is better. It's a better movie than
Mm,
Jurassic World Rebirth.
okay.
Um, and I think that this is, as constructed, this film,
Mm, mm,
it has put into place fast growing world building potential, which will work very well as they expand on it.
mm,
And like you said, I didn't know that James Gunn said it was going to be darker, but I think that the one thing I admired about the Harry Potter show, which I'm not a Harry Potter guy, but the one thing I could definitely appreciate was the characters went from, like, if I was a kid watching Harry Potter, I watched the kid movie. 3 years
mm.
later, it's a little bit more serious. So the franchise grew with the generation. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting thing, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
Superman, I think, has that potential to go from like a young person's idealistic, splashy, colorful world where, the good guys win and all this, and then slowly introduce um, some of the things that are a little bit more complex in terms of, like, how human beings experience
Mhm.
setbacks and struggle and trauma and things like that. I think you can go some other places. I think Batman is a perfect character for that. Um, and we haven't even heard much about Wonder Woman, but she's another character like Superman who comes from this idealistic, she's a goddess, so
Yes.
I think
It's
she,
so important that they nail that character. They have the right casting, and that they whatever story they're going to tell with Wonder Woman in it, that's gonna be good. She could use her own movie.
well, the handoff of character, she needs it. Yeah, she needs her own movie, but she's going to be facing the same problem David Corenswet faced, which is, dude, you're replacing Henry Cavill, bro.
Yeah. Yeah,
Henry
yeah,
Cavill
yeah.
is beloved, and he's not just a great looking Superman. Like, he looks like Superman. He's
Yes.
great off screen. Like, he's like, he's not an establishment guy that you'll catch in an interview bashing fans. In fact, quite the opposite. He takes the fan side. He
Yes.
argues on behalf of lore, and then is willing to lose a role if he
Yes.
feels. So Henry Cavill is were some big red boots to fill, right?
Yes.
Um, and I think David Corenswet was successful in doing that, and not and I think it's not to the detriment of Henry Cavill. So I don't think this was a zero sum game where he is like better than Henry Cavill. This is a
Mm.
different take on Superman, and I think that Henry Cavill's version of Superman is perfectly preserved and will be loved long into the future for its own right.
Oh,
And this
yes.
is something different.
Well, that's what I'm hearing from the results of this. A lot of people are like saying, you know what, while looking at the movie, they got the chills and they started to feel like, David Cornsweet was really definitely feeling like Superman.
He was
Um,
Superman. There's you
yeah,
lose track that you're because you can't help but compare when you first see, like,
yes,
is
yes.
that really Superman? Am I
That, yeah.
convinced?
Does he have the stuff?
And then I was forgetting and it dawned on me at one point. I was like, oh man, I think he did it. I think he pulled it off. I think David Corenswet is Superman now. I think he
Yeah.
made that role, and I think he did it very smoothly.
Mm,
And like I said, not to the detriment of his predecessor.
yes.
But Wonder Woman's gonna have to pull out. That's gonna be another. I think it's
You
easier to
gotta nail
recast
that.
Batman because
Yeah.
Batman himself is so powerful and so dark and interesting that you can put a lot of different actors in there. Maybe pull, but Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot was almost pitch perfect, like Henry
Yes.
Cavill.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
she's
she
gonna be tough
looks
to
like a
pull.
goddess in real life, okay?
Yes,
Beautiful head to toe, like a really tall, she's like 5'9" or 5'11" or something like that, or
yeah, she's a
some
tall girl.
she's tall, and, she bulked up for the role, and what I would love if they really did get a Wonder Woman who actually look like they draw her in the comics with all the muscles. I would just love it 'cause,
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
she was
not too much, but enough for her to, like, still
toned.
look feminine but just, like, give me, just a gorgeous, Wonder Woman who can also deliver the, the moments where she has to be tough without looking like, um, like a doll or looking like she should like she couldn't do it, like somebody who can
Oh,
really bring it, you
so
know?
totally. Yeah, everyone always complains about women throwing men around on screen. I'm like, it's not about whether a woman's tougher than a man or can beat it.
Mm,
It's, am I convinced when I'm watching it? Because if I'm not
yeah.
convinced, then you did not do your work, and I'm sorry, but she didn't sell.
Ooh,
So if you're gonna not, because I've seen women who can overpower men in movies, and if it's convincing, no one
yes,
doubts it, no one cares, no one complains, no one
yes.
says it's sexist, no one says it's emasculating. It's like, Ripley put him in his place.
Yeah,
He
Charlize
shouldn't have said
Theron is one, who can do who has that presence as well.
there's a
Um
scene in Terminator 2. I always love the scene now where she's escaping the mental prison, Sarah Connor,
Oh,
and
yes,
she's got this dowel rod, and one of these guys comes up to her and she shoves him so hard from the chest that he goes ankles up and lands on his. I'm like, oh, oh man, that looked like a jujitsu move. And she's
yeah,
tough. She looks like, so when she does that, I'm like, oh, bro, maybe
you're
stay away
getting
from
it.
her.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, you're gonna get in trouble right there,
right. So
and,
to your point,
Yeah.
Gal Gadot had that. She was like you said it perfectly. She wasn't masculinized in her
Yes,
muscles.
still look
She
feminine.
was toned, and honestly, Gal Gadot is just so naturally beautiful.
Yes.
And she's not like there's different types of beauty in women.
Mhm, mhm.
She is like goddess beautiful. Like she
Yes,
has
she
that
does.
pure beauty.
Yeah.
So and she was like she was like flirty without being
The personality, yes.
promiscuous. Like she'd be fun and flirty
Yes.
and then confident and sure of herself. And she was compassionate and emotional.
Yeah.
She she
Yeah.
she got happy when she saw a baby.
Yeah.
Like all this range, and it all worked for me. And so, like you said, she's tall. She had all the components.
Yes.
So who's going to replace her? I don't know. Obviously it's possible, but those are going to be some hard shoes to fill. I think as
It
well.
will be. I'm sure
I think
there's
Aquaman will
somebody
be
out
tough.
there, there's gotta be somebody out there, and maybe, they may need some coaching, but also, like, um, Gal Gadot had, some big boots to fill with, Linda Carter playing the role first, and also looking like she could, do the maneuvers and
Yeah, she was
everything
more
else.
like that a different type of hot.
Yes.
She, yeah, she was a little bit more like centerfold, hot at the
She's
same
gor
time, you know?
oh,
I'm like,
yes,
"Man, she
yes.
is gorgeous." I had the biggest crush on Linda Carter as a
Me
kid.
too.
Like, I think that's where, at around age 11, I was just like, "Wow." I
That's
think
a woman.
Linda Carter brought me into, like, the world of manhood. You know? I was like, "I don't know, I'm feeling something here." Uh,
Yes, yes, I mean, yeah, that's, and I think that's what our superheroes can do for us. They can really, just seeing a powerful woman or powerful man, just on screen or television or anything, it just really gives you like that inner like confidence and within yourself, like, oh yeah, I can, even if it's pretend, just for a moment, to be
yeah.
them,
Well,
and
we aspire to be like them, right? They're the ideal.
yes,
And I
yes,
think that's what's so good about Superman is here's an idea. Like Batman is a flawed character, like right from the get go, in a sense. So
yes,
we can identify with that sort of flaw.
mm,
Superman is special because we look at him and we're like, man, I couldn't do that.
yeah.
Like he's the ideal. He's the perfect circle. He's the ideal shape. Um, and then we see that he struggles too. So I think that there's a certain special brand there that's only Superman can deliver. So
Yes.
but I do think this movie is off to a good start.
Mm,
I think it did the job, and I think that the quality of the movie and the things that it did right will reveal itself more and more over time as they build off this. Now, of course, they have to continue to do a good job, but
yes.
if they do, they could get something special out of it. But time will tell.
Yes, I hope so. There's rumors of a possible sale within Warner Brothers, and if that's the case, I hope they do not touch this, and let this play out. Let this play out,
Yeah,
even
let
if
it play out, and
there's
let's
new
I'm
regime.
curious to see what it's gonna make.
Mm,
I don't
mm-mm.
think there's any numbers really yet. Um, but I am curious to see what kind of numbers this is gonna do because I'll tell you this, a couple things. One, a lot of people dressed up in Superman shirts,
I
at
love
the
that.
theater. We had great conversation with the people around us, so there was a robust love of Superman
Oh, that's
there.
so wonderful.
Yeah, and it's not like Star Wars has gotten to the point where you don't know which kind of Star Wars fans there are. Are they like the accessorized fans? Are they the Last Jedi fans? Are they the Phantom Menace? Like there's this whole thing. This was just like we're all Superman fans. We're all like all on the same footing here, and there was cheers and claps and
Oh, that's
laughter, and
nice. I
people cheered at
love
the end
that.
of the movie. There's a couple of like woo, when certain scenes were happening. So, you know, there's some demand for this. So I think that they're in good hands. So, but I
Awesome.
can't wait to see the numbers. I want the numbers
Yes.
to bear out.
And I'm suspecting there are gonna be a lot of people who go back to see this multiple times, And that's where you get to the bigger numbers, is people going back to see a movie multiple times.
Well, I'll tell you this. I have the urge to rewatch it, um, which is always a clue for me that there's something there. Even the things I didn't like about it. Uh,
Yes.
but so I'll tell you this: have you ever seen a movie? It's called 4DX. Have you heard of this?
No.
Oh my god! So there are theaters out there. It's called 4DX, and the movie you wear 3D glasses, and it's like an old school movie theater. You're not ordering food and talking to
Mm,
waiters coming and going and drinking a beer and being like, yeah, this is like regular stadium seating. You
okay.
buy your food in the lobby like in the old days,
Oh,
and you
yeah.
come in, but the seats are like brand spanking new. When Superman's flying, there are fans blowing air on the entire crowd. So you're like,
Are
there's
you
water that shoots up and lands on you. The seats are going like this when he's fighting people. When he's floating, when he's flying, and the skyscrapers, the seats kind of hover like you're in midair. Um, there's all sorts of, there's like psst, psst. When someone throws like a weapon and it goes past Superman's head, you're like air blows by your ears. It's the
wow.
fully immersive experience. And I'll be honest, it was cool as hell, but I also now just want to sit and watch. It was
Just
so
without it,
jarring.
yeah.
It was so jarring that my I had my big soda sitting in there, and I was like, "Oh my god, this thing's gonna fly out of this." And then I couldn't even take a sip because I'd stab myself in the face with the. So it was so violent. So now
Oh, man.
it was really cool, and I'm glad I did it. My kids freaking loved it,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
now I want to just sit down and watch the movie and enjoy it again and see if there's other things that I missed.
Right, right. Will it still have the same effect if you,
Yeah.
just watch the movie in a plain theater? That sounds like fun. Like, imagine watching, like, a Jurassic movie or, like, action movie, like a John Wick movie. Ooh, that
Oh,
must
yeah, well, like Top Gun Maverick or like F1, I think would be really
ooh,
good because
yes.
you feel like you're racing in these cars or in the
Ooh.
jets, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
But
man,
this
I
was
gotta go to one of those theaters one of these days.
it's definitely worth it, but this was as awesome as it was also pretty jarring because
Mhm.
there's a lot of action and superhero fighting, and I'm talking like every time Superman would punch, the seats are like doing so like you're just like
Every time
constantly
he punched, oh my god.
dude, if crypto landed, it'd be like boom. So like you're feeling every little jostle from the screen. Um,
Oh, man.
so it was intense.
That would tickle me to no end, actually.
The
I'd just
best is
be
when he was
laughing the whole
flying.
time.
Yeah, the best is when he's flying and you feel the fans blowing on you.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's really cool, though.
So
Well, yeah,
that's it. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. That's probably
Mm.
higher than most people want it to be in some areas, whatever.
Mhm.
It's definitely not a out of five, but I don't think it's a 3 out of 5 either. It's better. It's better than that average middle point. So I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars. This is a good movie, and I think that it has done its job. It has changed the story of Superman. It has changed the look and feel of Metropolis. It
Mm,
has set the stage for a new world. It has casually introduced the Justice League. It has put this. David Corenswet is now Superman. You know the new letter S. I'm seeing it everywhere in marketing. It's all over the place. Uh,
yes.
on Twitter, when I put hashtag Superman, it automatically added that little emoji of the
Mm,
new S. So
mhm, mhm.
like this has done its job. Now
Yeah,
they have to follow up and continue to do at least as
immediately.
good, you
Yeah,
know. And you know, you're going to have a bomb or two, just like Thor Dark World wasn't,
yeah.
you know. So you know, it's not going to be perfect, but I think if they could
You
follow up with
don't
one
give
or
up.
two big
You
hits.
don't yeah, you don't give up right away. You
Totally.
you you keep going, and I know that the next movie, I believe, is Supergirl, and that one has sort of a controversial edge to it. Um, again,
She looks
right?
like so her persona, she's only in it briefly at the end.
Mm,
Her persona is a chaotic college sorority chick.
yeah,
That is how
that
she comes across. And honestly, don't knock it until it comes
mm,
out because
yes,
the different flavor might just be the thing that makes it work.
yeah.
And Milliat, is it Alcock? Millie Alcock.
Amelia, yeah.
I think she was good.
Okay.
She's a good person to cast for this role.
I like the casting. I like
I
the
like the
casting.
casting
Mhm.
in it. We've never really had a blowout Supergirl. We've had some good ones.
Yeah,
There's,
and
one in
television, they
particular.
did very well.
What's that?
In television, the show Supergirl did very well.
What's the actress who played her? She was
I'm not
in.
sure.
I mean, there's one that I really like.
I love the Supergirl movie back in the '80s. That it was panned terribly, but
Melissa
I it's a
Benoist.
guilty.
Is
What
that her
was her
name?
name
Melissa
again?
Benoist.
I'm not sure.
I
I
think that's
didn't
her.
see
She
the
was
show.
super cute. She's super cute, and
Mm,
she seems to have been the best Supergirl,
mm.
um, from what I can tell. But Millie is going to give us a bigger James Gunn. There's going to be a new Supergirl in town, and
Mhm.
something tells me they might be able to deliver on this. So if
It
they
won't it
do,
won't be he's not directing that one, though. I
oh,
think
he's
someone
not.
else is,
Well,
yeah,
okay, so
someone
this is
else is
going.
directing, but it's based on a graphic novel by Tom King, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, something like that. I forget the
Okay,
exact one. And it is a kind of a controversial take on Supergirl,
what's
but
the controversy on it?
say that again?
Oh, what is the controversy on it?
The controversy is that it's a different take on Supergirl. She's a lot more, let's say, bratty, but also she has a good reason for being the way she is, because her entire world was, she watched Krypton be destroyed, and she has some trauma to
Mm,
go there. And she's also, I believe she's in the Phantom. Don't quote me on that, but she is in a place where she's not on Earth for a long time, and she has to deal with a lot of really savory people. So she's not like a goody two shoes like her cousin. So she's got a little bit more spice to her.
well, see, I don't mind that. I don't mind that yet. I don't know enough about
Mm-mm.
the like. Sometimes people know too much about the lore that it's ruined for them just by
Mm,
hearing about it.
yes, yes, yes,
Which
yes.
I don't blame them for. If I knew the lore, maybe I'd be upset too. But I don't know the lore, and I'm definitely willing to see their
Yeah,
take on Supergirl. I
me
would
too,
love to
actually.
have a really good Supergirl follow this up.
Yes, yes. Something really interesting, something with a great, with a great storyline, and I really would like the development, character development is where I'm at. Like when it comes to these characters, just to really get a deep dive on who they are as people, so you can connect with them that way. That would be my main thing about that I would like to see. And I believe one of the other rumors is that Jason Momoa will be playing Lobo.
Yes. Now that sounds
Um,
like good. I used to collect the Lobo magazine or comic book.
ooh, comic. Yeah, I heard. I got you.
So I have his comic books.
Yeah.
So that's a good casting choice.
Yes.
That actually
Um,
makes more sense than Aquaman.
Aquaman. Yeah. That
But I,
that's exactly what Jason thought that he was being hired for. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna put me as Lobo? No, you're Aquaman."
yeah, in fact, I think see Jason Momoa is kind of beloved. I think as an actor, I think people
Yes,
like him. He's a likable
yes,
guy. Chicks like him. Guys
yeah,
like him. He's one of those guys that appeals to both sides.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, he's perfect for Lobo. Perfect for Lobo. And I
yeah,
think that Lobo is the edginess that his. I think as an actor, he needs something that's
mm,
less campy. Like I just like my kids loved him in Minecraft, but when he played Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones, he was intimidating. He was like fierce, and
yeah,
he put himself in the public psyche with that role. And now
yes.
he's really moved into these safe, fun, like eye candy for like old women roles or something. And I think Lobo will give him that edginess that
As an
his.
old woman, please, I love it. Don't stop.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying like he's in like like Dwayne Johnson's there too, where
Mm,
he's like the safe big guy who looks good, and but I think Lobo's going to be a much darker role for him, and I think
yes.
he's capable of doing that. In
Well,
fact, getting rid of Jason Momoa might not be that popular for Aquaman, but replacing him with someone that looks like Aquaman might be the easiest thing to do. That might be the
yeah,
easiest
that
recast for
yeah, that
DC.
might yeah, that might be, and then also, Jason has a way of playing a villain that's actually a lot of fun. 'Cause, so I think he's actually gonna enjoy playing that role, just in general. So that's actually something I'm looking forward to. There's a couple of projects I'm actually looking forward to, that was on the slate, and let's, hope that they actually get to make those movies.
Yeah. Well, I think they will. My sense is that DC has this plan, and I think they had plan A, plan B, and plan C. Plan A is probably three movies, Superman, Supergirl, maybe Batman, right?
Yes, Brave and the
If
Bold.
these are rejected, and I think the reason they had this planned like this is there does seem to be superhero fatigue. There are some bomb after bomb after bomb out of Marvel, right? They're just not doing it. Their TV shows are despised. Their movies aren't interesting. No one's going to see them. They are all losing money. And now this is when DC has decided they're going to create their big DC universe. So I think they've had these talks and they're like, look, we want to go big. We want to build something that can make a lot of money. But I think they realize they have to do it right. So I think they're like, let's see how the first three movies are going to do.
Mm,
To your point, that way they're not giving up after one movie. So I think they
yeah.
started with one that they thought would work. And by the way, it's a big risk. I think Superman's hard to get right.
Mm.
I don't think I think Batman's the safest superhero there. I think you could put a lot of different male characters in that role. There's something like about Batman that a lot of guys feel like inside. So I think you could put a lot of actors in that role and it'll work. Superman is much more nuanced. You got to pick the right guy for that. Um, so this was I think very risky, and the fact that they did good is
Yeah.
kind of amazing, and I think that will save this project that they've conjured up. I think it's safe for now.
Well, they were okay, so Gunn really came in at the end of sort of the failure of Warner Brothers' control over DC. At the end, it was just like a hot mess.
Really messy.
He really was, I think the idea was go big or go home,
Right, right.
right? Like, just really come out with the big gut punch. He writes the thing himself, he directs it himself, so there's a lot that he's like, "Okay, I gotta roll up my sleeves and put in the work for this one." Because you you can't just leave that to somebody else at this point, because there's already so many failures in the pot, for Warner Brothers with DC, that they have to really come out with something that, uh, that's gonna pack a big punch. Now,
Totally
from
agree.
yeah, and from what I heard, this movie went through a lot of reworking. There's even some special effects they did for teasers that uh, they improved. I
Hmm.
don't know if you remember that there was a flying teaser, and David Cornswet's head was kind of bobbling in a strange way. They cleaned that up and fixed it up. There's so many things that they got feedback from, that they
But at
were
least they're
like,
listening to the audience.
yeah, and that's exactly what you need for this kind of movie. If you're gonna go shoot for Superman, you gotta listen to what people have to say about this thing, and make changes along the way. So, and I can see that that's what they made a better
Well,
movie along the way.
well, I think that in the 70s, the key was because remember, the 70s was a very gritty, very, not fun era for film. It was, and then Star Wars and Superman. So I think that they were trying to have fun in an anchored way, and
Mhm.
that was a very good combination. That was the secret sauce that really launched really the pop culture as we know it today.
Yes.
But I do think that the world has changed. And I do think that James Gunn was very wise. I think, like you said, go big or go home. Don't tell the origin story again. Don't play it so safe that we've already seen the movie. Do something different. And I think he decided, I'm going to kick open the door and it's going to be a wild comic book world in here. There's the Justice League. There's a supervillain over there. Here's Superman. There's Lex Luthor. They're all out here. They're all layered out. So I think that was his idea. And it's going to put some people off. I'm not surprised if
Yeah.
some people are not going to like that. But I do
Yeah.
think that they will come around as they get used to this new world. They're just not used to it. But
Yeah.
I think that younger audiences love it. And my kids loved it. So, that was one of the
Yeah,
first
the
times they heard
kids,
anyone
yeah.
get excited on an opening night, too. They never heard
Mm.
anyone cheering on an opening night.
Oh,
So,
that's such a wonderful experience for them.
yeah, right? I mean, I remember those.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I heard I was allowed to go to an opening night, and I was blown away by it was Batman, 1989. Uh,
Ooh.
Actually, I'm sorry. It was the first time that I saw people freak out on a trailer. I'm sitting in the theater,
Yes.
and they're watching a trailer. People were like, "Woo!" Like they were like ready to fight somebody, and I was like, "Oh man, Batman is cool
Yes,
like that,"
Batman.
you know.
Yeah. Yes.
So, yeah. Anyway, at the end of the day, I think this was a good movie. It is not a perfect movie. It is not a great movie. It is good. It is basically good on the original concepting, the wide scope of the world, and the strength of the characters and the actors and actresses that brought them to life. I think and the visuals are good. Like it's very convincing visuals. So there are things. There's enough here that I can get lost in the world of Superman for a couple hours, and I think that's going to appeal to a lot of people.
Oh, it's awesome.
So, well, anyway, I think was there anything else that you wanted to cover or
Oh,
discuss?
no. Yeah, yeah, I think we really, try to go through, a good amount of it, so I'm just looking forward to, catching the movie myself at some point.
I can't wait to hear your opinions.
Ah,
Um,
wait.
yeah, I can't wait to hear what you think about it and what your takes are on some of the same questions that we were covering today.
Mhm.
So, but anyway, for everyone out there, that's a discussion of Superman. If you're on the fence to see it, maybe that helped you make up your mind one way or the other. But yeah, that's Superman. Hope you enjoyed our conversation. And if you enjoyed the conversation, Retro, where can people find you?
Oh. Oh, well, you can find me on YouTube. I love movies, so I basically cover a lot of reviews and movie talks. And every Saturday, I have a watch party matinee for us to enjoy a oldie movies of some kind. Also, you can see me over on X. I also post the watch parties over there as well.
Awesome. And if you like, don't be shy. Subscribe to her channel and watch her live streams or her videos. They're very informative. And hopefully, you have a new sub that you listen to on a regular basis. So, and then obviously, if you enjoyed this discussion, please click like and
Mhm.
subscribe down below. And we will see you on the next discussion.
Bye.